This week's episode of Power Hour is all about how the coaching masters built a seven-figure coaching giant, right? Now, there is a reason as to why we're talking about that this week. Now, for all of you guys inside of the Coaching Mastery Facebook group, and once again, if you're listening to this on the podcast, please join Coaching Mastery for online coaches. So as you can see, very, very recently, only in fact, I don't know if there's a date on this, but a couple of days ago, I was featured in Disrupt magazine, and the headline reads, "The Coaching Masters. Liam James Collins shares the story of creating a seven-figure coaching giant." So what I thought would be a really, really good idea this week is to do this week's episode of Power Hour and the Coaching Masters podcast completely around this story. Because maybe it hit me earlier when the article was released. Maybe some of you haven't heard this story yet. So I thought what I would do as part of this episode of the podcast is actually read it to you, right? I'm actually just going to, the article, it's not very long, it's only that long. But I'm actually going to read you the article as part of this week's episode of the podcast, and then we're going to talk about it, right? Then we're going to talk about it. So for those that are listening on the podcast, go to disruptmagazine.com, and it's /the-coaching, the masters Liam James Collins. Anyway, there's what I'll do is I'll make sure that there's a link posted in the notes of the podcast episode, so you don't actually have to go and try to find it or type it in. But even if you go on Google and you type Liam James Collins Disrupt magazine, it will probably come up. So anyway, the headline, which I'm incredibly proud of, is "The Coaching Masters. Liam James Collins shares his story of creating a seven-figure coaching giant." Oh, so let's settle in for story time, ladies and gentlemen. It's like they do that story time, don't they, on CBBC, where you got like different celebrities reading stories. Right, let's do it. Let's settle in. Let's have our own Coaching Masters story time. Oh, don't you love that when someone says, "Let me tell you a story"? There's something about that I find that just, it sends shivers down your spine. There's something so human about wanting to be read a story. So I'm going to read you this story. And it says, "Change and transformation of any kind must start from within. While many of us have fallen victim to seeking liberation outside of our own selves in the past, only to realize it leads us further and further from happiness. It only takes a single courageous decision to choose to improve your mindset and continuously shift your perspective on any future situations as they arise." I have to give a huge shout out to Kelly Wing, the writer of this article, because I love the way she writes. I think she is a phenomenal writer. And it says, "The Coaching Masters is an interactive online training platform and community for coaches and aspiring coaches that has fast turned into a seven-figure coaching giant, helping people to uncover their values, purpose, and gifts." It says, "The brainchild of Liam James Collins and Lewis Raymond Taylor, the Coaching Masters' mission is to provide ordinary people with extraordinary tools to create freedom for themselves and others." Co-founder and COO Liam James Collins shares how the company got started and its plans for the future. So this is why I thought this would be really interesting, because maybe a lot of you don't know about how the Coaching Masters was created. And so I thought it'd be a great way to let you know. So it says, "Meeting Lewis Raymond Taylor and creating a lifelong partnership. Liam was still feeling the pain of losing his father and uncle when he met Lewis for the first time," which is absolutely true. "The pair had messaged back and forth on Instagram a few times before they met up for a coffee in February of 2019, that fateful day." And this is a quote from me. "We originally started talking because at this time, back in February 2019, it was unusual to see another young, vibrant, and successful coach," which it absolutely was. "Lewis was pretty much the only other young man in the coaching space that I knew of, and vice versa. So it only made sense that we met," right? And that was absolutely true. Back then, I honestly thought I was the only young coach, right? Young coach. Like it seemed like it was a space for the older person who had been in the game for 20 years, 30 years, and they were still teaching the same old worn out, dusty fucking techniques from those dusty fucking books. And I remember I had this real sense that I wanted to shake it up. Like I had a really strong sense that I wanted to grab hold of the coaching industry. I wanted to fully fucking shake it up. And I wanted to show people just how incredible it was. Because at the time it was being run by people who had become bored of coaching. It was run by people who were just running courses or seeing clients for the sake of it, just to make some money and just get through day by day. But it's such an unbelievable skill set for people to learn coaching tools, techniques, methods, frameworks. It's such a life-changing skill set to learn that I thought the whole world needs to know about this. And at the moment, it wasn't fun, it wasn't vibrant, it wasn't exciting. And then I saw this guy, Lewis Raymond Taylor, on Instagram, and I thought, what the fuck? There's this other young, vibrant coach who's trying to shake up the industry. I've got to meet this guy. So it says, from the first moment Liam and Lewis met, they knew they would merge their businesses and create one super coaching organization. This is how the Coaching Masters was born. And that's absolutely true. February 16th, 2019, right? February 16th, 2019. The first ever time me and Lewis met each other, for the first ever time, he came to my apartment in London. We sat down, we had a coffee, and I shit you not, we said from that very first day, what will happen is we'll end up merging our coaching businesses and we'll create one mega coaching business. And we said it from day one. At the time, we didn't have the name for it. We didn't have the plan, but we knew that's what was going to happen because it was so obvious that's what we needed to do. It says, according to Liam, the businesses were a perfect match. The reason our partnership made so much sense was that I had part A and Lewis had part B. I was able to create coaches because at the time I was qualified to create coaches and give people their coaching certification, qualification, accreditation. So I had part A, and Lewis was able to make them successful. He had the tools, the knowledge, the processes of taking coaches and making them very successful. My whole business was around qualifying and accrediting coaches, and Lewis's business was helping these coaches grow their businesses. So it was a perfect relationship. Structuring the Coaching Masters is the next headline. A couple of days after meeting, Liam and Lewis were both sitting downstairs in Costa Coffee by London Bridge. I'll never forget this. And they had mapped out their entire business structure. It's fucking true. It was then that they decided that they would create a 12-week mega coaching accreditation course to qualify people as coaches. Have you done the Coaching Masters 12-week coaching accreditation? Because we know it's a good experience because it's an incredible course. And we created the premise for the entire course, version 1 anyway, version 1, downstairs in Costa Coffee, which I just think is absolutely incredible. They started out with just one course. The very first time they launched this course, they made $17,000. Liam and Lewis immediately reinvested the $17,000 into their business and started focusing on establishing their course for a second time. So one thing that I really want to emphasize with that is it would have been very easy for me and Lewis to have said, oh, brilliant, $17,000. Right, let's go and spend it. Let's go and buy some nice clothes. Let's maybe cover our mortgage or our rent for a few months. And we were like, no. We're going to reinvest every single penny of that back into the business to try to make round 2 of the course even better. I'm hoping that one day this is going to become like a blue plaque. You know, in London where they have the blue plaques to commemorate, is that the way? Commemorate like those significant people and places. So to let you know what Costa Coffee it is, I'll tell you the exact one, right? There's a street called Southwark Street, Southwark, right? My old apartment where I used to live is 22 Southwark Street. So everybody, when you can, Google it, right? This is where I lived here for 5 years. In this apartment was where so many significant moments of my life happened. That's where I got engaged. That's where I got married. That's where I lost my dad. That's where I started my first business. That's where my acting career really crashed. That's where I became a postman for the first time. So 22 Southwark Street, Southwark. That is where I used to live, right? And right opposite, if you look on Google Maps, right opposite 22 Southwark Street, there's a Costa Coffee, and it's right on the corner of the street. That is the Costa Coffee when me and Lewis created the Coaching Masters, right? Inside that Costa Coffee, sitting downstairs. And also Pip says, I know it well. I used to work in St. Mary's Axe, right? That is brilliant. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. So yeah, everyone else, Google it and you'll see my apartment, 22 Southwark Street. It was flat number 2, 22 Southwark Street. And the Costa Coffee was over the road. So anyway, that's where the whole Coaching Masters came from. And it says, from idea to 7-figure coaching academy. Since that momentous day in February 2019, the Coaching Masters have fast become a 7-figure online coaching academy, generating over $200,000 per month and $1.8 million per year in online course sales. That's actually increased. According to Liam, the Coaching Masters have trained and qualified thousands of coaches from 47 different countries around the world. We are the only, this is absolutely true, we are the only end-to-end solution for coaches in the world. And what that means is we are the only organization that exists on this planet to help people, 1, become a coach, 2, up-level their coaching skills by becoming an NLP practitioner and master practitioner, 3, help you grow your coaching business, and 4, help you create passive income from creating an online course, right? A lot of other organizations give you those pieces individually, but the Coaching Masters offer it all. We're the only coaching organization in the world that has every single piece of the puzzle required to go from brand new coach to having established a successful series of online courses as a coach and all of the journey in between. And finally, it says expansion and charitable giving. A significant part of the structure of the business is helping locals and giving back. The Coaching Masters have recently opened a coffee shop in Bali. It's a co-working space also called Cafe Coach. They also continuously give charitable causes, hand delivering food to food banks, which we do often, supporting children with cancer and also supporting siblings of children with cancer. That's very important to us. And volunteering at dog shelters as well, which we do often. Liam shares that the Coaching Masters is the fastest growing online coaching academy in the world and is by a mile the most dynamic and will soon become the biggest coaching academy in the world, both offline and online. The company is currently exploring collaborations with some of the biggest names in the coaching, mindset and business world, which is very, very exciting. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to just sort of like give you some more details of the story, because naturally, when it comes to an article like that, you only get a snippet, right? It's like the sort of premise of press. You only get a snippet. And I want to tell you more about the story. I want to give you more insight to the story. I'll even tell you where we sat. Oh, hang on a minute. Can you sit inside? You can't sit inside yet, but like, because you're listening to this episode that I've recorded this on the 15th of April, 2021. But when you can sit inside, go inside that Costa, go downstairs, and immediately, as soon as you get to the bottom of the stairs, look just slightly diagonally to your left. And what you'll see, if it's still there, is a little sofa, right? Backed up against the wall. There's a little sofa and there's a table in front of the sofa. That's where we sat. And that's where we created the Coaching Masters. So go there for inspiration, Steph. I think that is an absolutely phenomenal idea. And my apartment, my old apartment, when you're outside of 22 Southwark Street, it's a pub, right? So 22 Southwark Street is the Southwark Tavern. When you're standing outside the pub, look up above the pub, and the first row of windows above the pub, that was my apartment. And they still have the green curtains that I bought from IKEA. I can see them. Every time I drive past, I can see them. And I tell you what's really weird is the curtains never move. So either the person who lives there now, they don't ever move the curtains, or no one lives there now, which is really weird. So there you go. If you want to live in my old apartment, it's flat number 2, 22 Southwark Street. And so yeah, look up and you'll see like the green curtains. That was my old apartment. That was the apartment I lived in throughout so many significant moments of my life. So anyway, let me give you a little bit more insight to the story. And yeah, let me think about where to begin, actually. So let me begin telling you about the moment I decided to quit my postman job. I think that would be quite an interesting place to start, because a lot of you know that I used to be a postman. It's a big part of my story. When I was a postman, I made £267 a week, and my rent was £167 a week. And so my bills and my food needed to fit into £100, right? And that was how I lived for a couple of years. And it was really specific. That was like my structure. I knew £267 I'm getting paid. £167 is my rent. I need to make sure I don't spend over £100 a week. And bills had to come out of that. My bills were like 50 quid a week. Food ended up being, I don't know, like 30 or something. And I had 20 quid a week to just like spend on just, I don't know, whatever I wanted. And that happened for 2 years. But even that, I know it's like as crazy as this sounds, like even that, I was actually more than happy to just roll with that. That doesn't sound crazy actually, because we still live in a very, very like incredibly, in my mind anyway, like an incredibly privileged position. Like there are so many people that live in fucking war-torn countries, and there are people like locked in cages across the world and fucking horrible stuff going on. So like with me, when I'm walking through like the fucking depths of Brixton and there's all these shops with like shop windows smashed and there's people out on the street, I'm walking around thinking, this is paradise. This is fucking paradise, because I'm not locked in a cage, you know, and I'm able to like walk into a shop and spend that £20 on like fresh water or maybe a bit of food. So anyway, I feel like I've kind of often had a sunny disposition, which I can fall back on, which is great. But I had that sunny disposition. I wasn't miserable as a postman. I wasn't really miserable. I felt like there were times where I felt like I let myself down, and I was feeling, thinking about it now, I was feeling pretty bad about myself because I really felt like I'd let myself down. But I can't outwardly say, oh yeah, I was really, really miserable. I was really down. Like I was feeling it, because there was a time where I was working as an actor and I was on the biggest movie sets in the world. I'd gone from doing fight scenes with Benedict Cumberbatch and working every day with Tom Hardy and being featured on different BBC dramas. And I'd gone from that to then being a postman. So I felt down and I felt bad about myself, and I felt like I let myself down. But again, I kind of always balanced it with the realization that I'm still in a really lucky position compared to lots of other people around the world. So it was like a weird balance I was striking in my head. But anyway, I think the main story of that is like there were massive parts of that journey that I really appreciated. Like I really appreciated that £267 a week. And I really loved that I could cover my rent and my bills within that £267. And at the time, in my mind, I was still thinking, I'll still maybe get some auditions and maybe the acting thing will still work out. And anyway, like on this journey, I started discovering this thing called personal development, self-development, coaching. I was introduced to the likes of Tony Robbins and Paul McKenna and Jim Rohn and all of these people that were in the personal development space. And that's how I really, truly discovered it, when I started listening to it on my walks as a postman, and I started reading personal development books. And I got to the point where I thought, maybe I could do this. This is throughout 2015, 2016. And I was like, maybe I can do this. Maybe I could become a coach. Maybe I could stand up on stage one day and inspire people and empower people. I'm loving what I'm reading. I'm loving what I'm listening to. And I started applying all of the tools and the techniques to myself, because of course, that's where we begin this journey. It was one day where I actually delivered a package to Tom Hardy's house, right? Because he lived in Richmond, which is where I was a postman, in Richmond near London. And all day I was so nervous about delivering this package to him, because a few years earlier, like 5 years earlier, I'd been working with him every day on Batman. And I was thinking, is he going to recognize me? Like, what do I say? Do I introduce myself again? Do I say, hey, it's me, Liam from Batman, blah, blah. And at this time, I'd lost lots of weight. My hair was really long. And I think that was partly just feeling pretty down about myself. And anyway, I knocked on the door and he opened the door and he's standing there. He had a huge beard. He was in his dressing gown. And I just couldn't even bring myself to say, hey, do you remember me? It's Liam from 5 years ago. We worked on Batman. And instead, I literally just said, I need your signature for the package. And he signed it, closed the door. I walked off. And that day, I quit my job. That day. Because I couldn't do it anymore. I was like, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I just thought, I used to feel like I was on top of the world working on these incredible movies. And then all of a sudden, I'm fucking like delivering mail to the same actor that I used to work with, and he doesn't even know who I am. And I was like, I've got to do something else. Like, I have to do something better with my life. So I went home, I quit, and I made the decision that I was going to really take this personal development stuff seriously. And I remember it so clearly because it was such a significant date for this to happen. January 1st, 2017. January 1st, 2017 was the moment I decided, when I really properly decided, I wasn't going back. And actually, I was going to create this coaching business. And it was going to be a fresh start. And it was going to be a fresh year. And it was going to be a fresh journey of discovery. And I was going to throw myself into it. And when I first started my coaching business, I did the thing that everybody should do, which is to gain the knowledge, right? Gain the knowledge, gain the wisdom, get your skill set up here, right? And that's why, of course, the Coaching Masters accreditation is so valuable, because contained within the accreditation are all of the tools, the techniques, and the methods that I know work and that Lewis knows work, because they're the techniques that we use on our clients, right? And we have been using them for years now. So anyway, I had my own versions of the accreditation. I studied with some people. I read a lot of books. I fucking went to a lot of seminars. I did a lot of courses, and I fully like threw myself into it in a big way. Like, that was my main thing. Get very good. That was my main thing. Become very, very good. Become an excellent coach. Get to the point where when you coach people, you know you're going to change their lives because you know these techniques inside out, upside down, left and right. And I did that, right? I did that. I really properly studied. And then what I did is I was bringing on some clients. But of course, what's really key then is understanding how the business side works, how the business element of being a coach works. And so at first, I actually had the wrong mindset, right? I really had the wrong mindset. I had the mindset where I was more interested in how much money I could make rather than how many people I could help. Now, for all of you coaches listening to this, this is a golden piece of information that I received from one of the greatest coaches in the world, Paul McKenna. He's the #1 self-development author on earth. He sold more books on self-development than any other author in the world, more than Tony Robbins, more than Jim Rohn, more than all of them put together. And I had a sit-down conversation with him. And I told him that I was very, 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 very passionate about becoming the best coach that I possibly could. But at the same time, what he heard in my voice, in what I was saying, is he heard me focusing very heavily on money. Of course. Well, I'm worried about money. I don't know how much I can make. I want more freedom. I want to go on more holidays. I want to buy a nicer car. And he said to me the one piece of advice that completely changed the game for me, where he said, Liam, the more value you add to other people's lives, the more money you're going to make. And I realized in that moment, I wasn't focused on adding value to people's lives. I was focused on how much money I could make. And even though I wanted to become the best coach I could, my focus was on me becoming a great coach so that I can make lots of money. My focus wasn't on me becoming a great coach so I can add tons of value. And that's exactly where my focus needed to be. So I went home and I completely shifted my mindset. I restructured my whole business and I decided to just give, right? To give, not give away my services for free, but to give in terms of to provide value to people's lives. So that's at the point where I decided, you know what, when I go on Facebook, when I go on Instagram, when I go on these social media platforms, my focus isn't going to be to go on there in order to get clients. My focus is going to be to go on there in order to add value. And that's all I'm going to do is I'm just going to add value. I'm going to write a lot of content where I know it will help people break down their limiting beliefs, where it will help them get focused, where it will help them achieve their goals. I'll take this coaching stuff that I know and I'll put it in the form of value added, right? Of course, there's nothing more powerful than an actual sit-down coaching session with someone. But what are some of the best ways of attracting the clients towards you so you can get yourself into a position where you have those sit-down coaching sessions? It's adding value so people know that you know your shit, you know what you're talking about, and adding value to the point where you've added so much value to their lives in the basis of the content you're writing, the advice that you're giving, even like the blog posts that you're putting out there, just value, just putting it out there. Then of course, naturally you're making connections with people because people gravitate towards what you're saying. They gravitate towards what you write. They gravitate towards you because you're adding value to their lives, and they don't want that value to stop. They want it to take it further. And then you find yourself getting into conversations with people about the value that you've added. And that conversation is then the perfect conversation to lead into discovery call, bringing on a new client. Now, of course, we teach every step in great detail on the Ultimate Launch, which is what the Ultimate Launch course is for. But it was that one mindset shift that just changed absolutely everything for me. Instead of seeing how much I could take, it's like, how much can I give? And by giving so much, I attracted way more people towards me. So that's what I did. And I ended up developing a very successful one-to-one coaching business. And I did that, and it was great, right? I really enjoyed it. My coaching business was fantastic. I was making money. I had the freedom that I desired. I was working from home. That was a huge thing for me. And one thing to really, really point out here is when I talk about creating the freedom that I desired, and especially at this stage, back then when I was a standalone coach that was seeing clients, which of course many of you are, I'm not talking about, oh, brilliant, I had $1 million sitting in the bank. I was talking about the kind of freedom that allowed me to simply work from home instead of working in an office. That was fucking gold to me. Gold. And that's still to this day, freedom that I value above everything else. It really is, right? Knowing that I'm able to sit in a coffee shop and work from my laptop and send some emails and chat to clients, right? And organize coaching sessions from my laptop in a coffee shop rather than having to walk into that office, which I fucking hated so much, or to be delivering mail again, or to be working behind that bar again, right? That to me is the freedom that I'm talking about. Right? Not a lot of people hear that and they're like, oh, massive financial freedom, $1 million, put loads of money. No, it was not like that, right? It was like absolute elation. I loved every moment of it because all of a sudden, that £267 a week. I remember when I first started my coaching business, I said, if I can just match the £267 a week that I make as a postman, if I can just match that as a coach, I'll be happy. Because it means that I'm making the same amount of money I'm making right now, except I don't need to get up at fucking 4 o'clock every morning. And actually, I get to decide when I spend time with my family, when we get to have days off. I don't need to go and walk the streets and deliver post. I can do it from a coffee shop. I can do it from home. That's the kind of freedom that I was like absolutely elated that I had achieved. But of course, as an ambitious person, as lots of you are, we want to grow, we want to progress. And so my next viewpoint, my next vision, after having created a very successful coaching business, one-on-one coaching business, I thought, I want to teach people about this. I really felt like I was just sitting on this, like the world's best kept secret. I saw so many people miserable in their jobs, day after day after day, clawing their way out of bed, doing a commute that they fucking hated, to go to a job which they didn't like, just to be able to make some money to then fund a life which they weren't that excited about. And I saw these people trying to find all of these different avenues of how do I get out of that, right? How can I start an online business? How can I work from my laptop? How can I find freedom? How can I just make a bit of money so I don't have to go into that fucking office anymore? And I'm here thinking, I figured it out and no one's talking about it. It's becoming a coach. I figured it out. It's like you become a coach, you increase your coaching skills, you grow your coaching business, you see clients one-on-one, of which you do via Zoom, and you charge for coaching packages, right? So it's like I had these like calculations going on in my head thinking everyone else that's in this position and they're looking for that thing, I found the thing, right? And not only is it a very, very viable option of being able to create an online business that you can run from your laptop, but it gives you genuine fulfillment. So I couldn't believe it, right? I felt like I'd found the fucking golden goose and no one knew about it. And no one was talking about it because the only other people were people that had sort of been in the industry for 30 years, 40 years. They'd got bored with it. They're just regurgitating the same old coaching techniques from 40 years ago, blowing the dust off the books. And there wasn't any kind of vibrancy around it or vibe around it. And I just thought this was crazy. So I needed to tell the world. I was like, everybody that's in that position that I was in, where you're unfulfilled in your job, where you don't like the fact that you're clawing yourself out of bed, you're doing a commute, you're going into a job to make money, to fund a life that's not exciting you at the moment because you don't like your job, and you're looking for these avenues and you're looking for these ways of being able to start a business, but more specifically an online business, so you've got the freedom of movement, and everyone else is having those daydreams that I was having, which is sitting in that coffee shop, and when it gets to 9 a.m, you don't need to leave to go to that fucking office. You can stay there. And you can stay in that coffee shop for as long as you want, right? And you can even put your headphones in. You can do a coaching session in that coffee shop. Or you can close your laptop. You can walk to your house, go and set up your own little home office, do a coaching session from that house. That was like, I had achieved that. And I thought it was just the fucking best thing in the world. And it is the best thing in the world. But still no one knew about it. So I was like, I need to tell people about this. I need to let people know about this option that they have that they don't realize. So I started running completely free workshops, right? Completely for free, just to tell people about the opportunity. And I got to a point where I was qualified to then create coaches, right? I became a trainer. So I was in a position where I was able to qualify and accredit people if they wanted to become a coach, exactly like I was. So I thought at that time, what I need to do is I was still coaching because I love coaching. I still coach now. I don't do it as often because I'm growing the coaching masters. But I thought what I need to do whilst I'm still coaching, I need to train people. I need to train people to become coaches so that they can get themselves out of this fucking horrible situation they're in that I was in. And I actually created at the time what was actually an offline training academy, right? My first offline training academy was called the Aspiration Hub, right? That was my first business. It was called the Aspiration Hub. And my idea was that it was going to be this hub where people could achieve their aspirations via becoming a coach, right? And of course, now looking back on it, it's like fucking what a ridiculous thing to call it, where it doesn't explain what it is. Like the coaching masters is fucking so much better. But anyway, that's what it was called. It was called the Aspiration Hub. And so I did that, and I had this offline training academy. So I carried on running these workshops where I'd get a whole bunch of people in a room that had basically responded to a Facebook ad, or they'd responded to some sort of bit of content that I put out there. And they've sort of said, yeah, I'm experiencing that. I'm not happy in my job. I'm feeling unfulfilled. I would love to explore an option where I could actually get fulfillment and actually help people and run this from my laptop and decide how much I charge. I would love that kind of freedom. So I was like, come to these workshops. Just come to these workshops and I'll show you how it's done. So I'd get people in the room and I would literally introduce them to what coaching is. And it was fucking amazing because so many people were like, I didn't even know about this. I didn't know it was an option, right? A lot of people made the massive misconception that they were like, oh, but there's only therapy, right? If you want to go and talk to someone and have a sit down conversation where, you know, you pay someone to sit down and listen to you, that's called a therapist. They didn't realize there was this dynamic modality. I mean, I fucking hate that word modality, but it's like, there was this dynamic system that had been created called coaching, where it wasn't about dwelling on the past. It wasn't about giving advice. It wasn't about giving guidance. It was about taking people from where they are stuck to where they want to be by asking the right questions and following a few simple but powerful techniques. And the value that you give people when doing that is utterly mind-blowing, because your clients, they're breaking down limiting beliefs that they've had since they were kids, and they're achieving goals that they never thought were possible. So it's not only fulfilling, it's not only a fucking amazing, amazing option for an online business, it's also highly valuable. It's incredibly valuable to the person who's your client, the one paying you money. So they're at a point where they're like, yeah, X amount of pounds or dollars for a coaching program, go for it if I'm going to be able to achieve these goals and gain this clarity and find this focus and break down those limiting beliefs. So it's just the best option. I mean, you know how passionate I am about coaching anyway, but I felt like I needed to tell the world about this. So anyway, I kept running these workshops. My academy, offline academy, was growing. I had lots of students. They were qualifying as life coaches, as NLP practitioners, master practitioners. And it was growing and it was growing and it was growing and it was doing great. And that's then when I lost my dad, right? That was then when I lost my dad. And I really struggled to focus naturally, of course. Like when I lost my dad to suicide, I just put a stop to everything, right? I just full blown put a stop to all business, right? I paused everything, just completely paused it. And by this point, the Aspiration Hub, my offline training academy, was big enough that I could just say, look, I'm just going to fucking pause just for a couple of months, right? I'm not going to do anything. I kind of saved up some money. I was making money, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, right, I'm just going to pause. And so anyway, I did, right? I paused. I lost my dad October 29th, 2018. And then I didn't do anything in November, December, January. And it was funny because as I moved into February, and it was about 4 months after losing my dad to suicide, I was like, oh, I'm going to start doing something again now. Like I'm going to start business up again. And now I'm like, yep, I've got the focus. I've got the energy. I can't just, let my life pass me by just because I lost my dad. And that was like the exact moment as well that I started seeing more and more and more of Lewis on Instagram. And I was like, okay, I'm going to send him a message. And I sent Lewis a message and I basically said, because we'd like commented on each other's pictures and stuff a couple of times. And I sent him this message and I just said, look, mate, there's no agenda behind this message. I don't need anything. I don't want anything. I'm just letting you know that I highly appreciate what you're doing. I love that you love coaching. I love the energy you're bringing to it. I love that you're making it fun and vibrant, and you're also trying to shake the cobwebs off of this industry. I love what you're doing. And he messaged me back straight away and was like, mate, let's meet up for a coffee. And we nearly met a couple of times. And like, I remember I said, oh, I'm sorry, because I was still like, at this point, my dad's twin brother was actually dying of cancer at the time. And I was sleeping on the hospital floor with him every night. And I said to Lewis, I can't at the moment, but let's meet up soon. And then after my dad's twin brother died, they actually died 80 days apart. Lewis was like, look, mate, let's definitely meet up. Like, I know obviously you're in pain at the moment, but let's meet up, let's chat. And that was then February 16th, 2019, where then finally we made it happen. And Lewis came to my apartment, little flat 2, 22 Southwark Street. And that's where the beginning of that article begins. That's when we had the first sit down conversation. I told him all about the Aspiration Hub. He told me about his business that he had called Hunger Star. And it was like, let's just join them. Let's just join them together. And then we created the Coaching Masters. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how the Coaching Masters was born. It was indeed how the Coaching Masters was born. So I'm for all of the Coaching Masters members, as you know, every single week I do TCM TV, where we connect in with each other and get to know each other a bit more. And we give away prizes, we play some games, give you some updates. I'm about to jump over into the Coaching Masters community right now in order to deliver this week's episode of TCM TV. For everybody listening to this on the podcast, please make sure that you join Coaching Mastery for online coaches. It's a free group where I record this podcast completely live. For everybody who's in that group or listening to the podcast, make sure you go to thecoachingmasters.com. Make sure you check us out. Make sure you join the Coaching Masters. It is the most dynamic, vibrant coaching space in the world, and it's growing every single day. Thank you to Kylie, who says it's such a powerful story, Liam. I really appreciate that. I've just realized I've probably not shared it in a long time. And Lewis, when he started his coaching business, he had only left prison a short while before, a couple of years before. So if a prisoner and a postman who are utterly, utterly down on their luck at one stage in their lives can create what is now described as a 7-figure coaching giant, then every single one of you listening to this, you have the potential of creating your own giant. And that's what I want to empower you to do. Create your own giant. You have it in you and you can do it. You just need to take immediate, imperfect action and make it happen. and believe in the direction that you're moving in, and also find the passion for what you're building. That's what we did. And so that fateful day in Costa Coffee was, the result of that now is the Coaching Masters. So I love you all. You're amazing. You're powerful. You're valid. You have a voice. Use that voice. Use your passion. Use your drive. You have these things, even at times where you feel like you don't or you're missing them. You have them, and keep driving forward. I love you all, and I will speak very, very soon.